tutorial by LearnFast Studios.
In today's session, I would like to explain you how we can write different types of the functions using an example program. Let us have a small recap. A function is a self-contained block of the statements used to improve the modularity. There are two types of the functions, predefined and user-defined. The predefined functions are available in header files which does not need any separate user coding, whereas user-defined code should be written by the programmer itself. When there is a need for writing code redundantly in multiple times and multiple places in one single large program, we can use the functions to minimize the code and enhance the reuse. The detailed explanation is available in my previous lecture video displayed in the suggestion box. There are three important thumb rules: declaration, definition, and then function call, used for creation of the user-defined functions. The values passed from the calling function to called function are called as an argument. The values passed back from the called function to calling function is said to be as an return value. The function which has this function call is said to be as an calling function. The function which is invoked when there is a function call is said to be as an called function. Now let us see how no arguments and then no return value type of the function works. Here the display menu is a no argument and then no return type of the function. Usually autonomous and independent set of the statements which does not has any dependency with other part of the program, then they can be written in the functions with no arguments and then no return type. The program execution starts with the opening bracket of the main function, then it will reach to the display menu function, and when the control reaches to the display menu function, now the control will be transferred to the display menu function, executes all the statements written in the display menu function until there is no return statement. If there is no return statement written in this function, then the control will be transferred back after the closing bracket of the display menu function to the next line of the calling function. Here the display menu is a function call. Since it is available in the main function, so main function will become as an calling function and then display menu function will become as an called function. The declaration for this display menu function is written here in the global variable declaration. You can also rewrite the same inside the main function, which does not make any difference when you are having only a main function and then display menu function. But if you want to use this display menu function call in even other functions, then you need to use this declaration in the global variable declaration part. A detailed presentation was made in my previous video link, which is available in the suggestion box. In our next type of the functions, we write an average function which will take arguments but which will not return any value. This average function will take two of the integers as an argument, and since it is not returning any value, the declaration is said to be as an void type. As we discussed in the earlier part, the control will start from the opening bracket of the main function. It will be transferred to the calling function, but here we are having arguments. The arguments are the values which are transferred from the calling function to called function. Here the calling function is the main function, called function is an average function. Now the values written in the function call are said to be as an actual parameters. These values will be now transferred to the called function, and the formal parameters written in the function definition, both a and b, are now initialized with the values 5, 6 respectively, and then this average function will perform average and then displays what is the average value. I also made one more separate video to explain this with more examples. You can watch it in the link provided in the suggestion box. Now the next type of the functions are arguments and return values. That means our average function here will take two arguments, integers, and then it will return one value which is a floating point value. Hence the declaration is now float average of int comma int. This declaration you can also write in the main function. When you are calling functions with arguments and return type, then you need to use a variable to store the value which is written from the called function. Here the calling function is a main function and then called function is an average function. Now the values 5, 6, which are actual parameters, initialized to a and then b respectively, and the average is calculated, and that will be returned from the average function back to the main function, and the value returned from the average function available in avg variable will now stored in k. It further continues its execution till the end of the statement. Here we need to remember that this return statement is used to return the control from the called function back to the calling function. If you mention any value inside the parenthesis or without the parenthesis, then that value will be passed back to the calling function. It can pass only one single variable. An example with the detailed explanation is provided in my previous lecture video in the link provided in the suggestion box. This picture will explain you how the control transfer will occur when you are having more than one subfunction in your program. In this program we are having two of the subfunction. One is an add function, other one is a subfunction. Here a small mistake was done. Instead of the sum, we need to write down the subfunction here. So these two functions are no argument and then no return value type. First our control will start with the opening bracket of the main function, then it will continue till the add, and then control now transfer to the add function. We are not passing any value to this add function, so no values are coming to this add, and then it will perform all the statements. The control will transfer back to the next line of this add function call, and then it will execute all the statements and then continue till it encounter subfunction back, and then the control will now transfer to the subfunction, executes all the statements in the subfunction, and then get back to the main function. So when you are having the multiple function calls in one single main program, then the control transfer will be visualized just like this. You can also call subfunction in this add function. If you write that sort of the statement, add function call here, then the control will transfer from add function to the subfunction. Once it finishes all the statements execution in the subfunction, then it will go to the next line of the add function where there is a function call. Possible when you are having the global declaration of this function calls. Till now we have discussed the functions with no arguments, no return type, arguments, no return type, and then arguments return type. Now in this session I would like to take two of the example programs in this session. Let's get started.